Hello, everybody. This is the Catholic Esquire. Please check out my website at catholicesquire.org. So, I'm making this video as a follow up to my last video. God bless the SSPX. They opened that beautiful church in St. Mary's, Kansas. And, this just brings to mind so many of the issues that are going on right now in Catholic social media. It's really not a new issue at all, but it's these constant attacks on the SSPX, baseless, uh, ignorant, and they just continue to keep coming. Now, a lot of the attacks are actually coming from other traditionalists, big time. And yes, there is inter-traditional wars, I guess, so to speak, going on between some people who think the SSPX are schismatic, which is totally ridiculous, and those who, have a problem with some of the other traditional communities, the so-called Ecclesia Dei communities. The FSSP is one of the bigger ones. And so I want to address that topic today, and I think I'm in a good position to do so. After I decided to leave the Novus Ordo world for good, I did attend an FSSP parish for quite a while, almost 2 years exclusively. I became very familiar with the priests there, the community there, and ultimately we decided to start attending the local SSPX parish. Yes, I am very blessed because I live within 20 minutes drive of both an FSSP parish and an SSPX parish. As a matter of fact, I'm also within about a 25-minute drive of an archdiocesan traditional mass as well. So I can speak, I should say, from experience because I've attended FSSP masses and parishes as a full-time parishioner, and now I attend an SSPX parish as a full-time parishioner. I've also had extensive experience attending the diocesan Latin Mass. So I'm just in a unique position to talk about it because I can talk from my own experience. But I've also done research on this. As a matter of fact, you can check out some of that on my website at catholicesquire.org, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. Now, what I want to talk about today is why, after having attended an FSP parish for a while, we ultimately decided to attend the SSPX. And for me, it really had nothing to do with quality of the priests or sermons or any issue or problem I had with people who attended the FSSP. Some of them are still very much my friends. And so it has nothing to do with that. The FSSP parish I attended was very good and very orthodox and very traditional. Some excellent sermons going on there. They still are. But the problem is that when you decide and you have an option, in which I do, I was blessed to have the option to choose. I ultimately chose the SSPX. And the reason is, and quite frankly, it just all comes down to the history of these organizations and the Second Vatican Council. This is very, very important. And this is a problem that we're not going to get past in the traditional community. We're not going to be able to avoid it anymore. And so we might as well just put it out on the table. There's a problem with the Second Vatican Council. The FSSP said, at least they put it on paper, in order to secure or purchase their ability to continue to say the Mass, they said there wasn't a problem with it. And the SSPX held true to their position and their principles and the teachings of the faith and said, I'm sorry, there's just some things we cannot go along with from the Second Vatican Council. That's where the rubber meets the road with this issue. And no, we're not going to get past it. We can't just say, well, if you don't do follow and submit all your loyalty and concede to everything that the Vatican Council taught and its spirit, then you're not Catholic. Sorry, that's not going to work. We're going to have that discussion. Now, how does this all play back or tie back into the FSSP? Because in 1988, at the time when Archbishop Lefebvre consecrated the 4 bishops without the permission of John Paul II, some members of the SSPX broke off. That's right. The FSSP wouldn't even exist today if it wasn't for the SSPX. Now, these members from the FSSP, or that became the FSSP, and ultimately some other traditional communities, they had to sign on and make an agreement with Rome. They had to, number one, sell out Archbishop Lefebvre and throw him under the bus. But number two, and probably worse, was they had to agree with some very modernist and un-Catholic ideas. And we can see exactly what those were. This isn't hidden. This is all open in the public. If you go and read the 1988 Ecclesia Dei document. Now, if you go to my website at catholicesquire.org, just type in FSSP. I wrote 2 articles on this called Wake Up FSSP. Not because I think those who run the FSP are stupid, but because they need to get real about their own history here, because it could come crashing down on them very, very hard, very, very soon. I simply do this out of charity and love. Because the reality is back in 1988, they sold out to Rome, the modernists in Rome. Now, I'm going to talk about this specifically, and we're going to go back and look at documents, the Ecclesia Dei document from 1988, authored by John Paul II, where he's talking about these communities that that basically left and abandoned Archbishop Lefebvre and agreed with certain principles in order to secure the right to continue to celebrate the Latin Mass. Now, in Ecclesia Dei 4, paragraph 4, I'm going to read from there a little bit. And listen carefully to what's being said here. This is John Paul II in Ecclesia Dei. Quote, "The root of this schismatic act," that's referring to Lefebvre's consecrations, "can be discerned in an incomplete and contradictory notion of tradition. Incomplete because it does not take sufficiently into account the living character of tradition, which, as the Second Vatican Council clearly taught, comes from the apostles and progresses in the church with the help of the Holy Spirit. There is a growth and insight into the realities and words that are being passed on. This comes about in various ways. It comes through the contemplation and study of believers who ponder these things in their hearts. And it comes from the intimate sense of spiritual realities which they experience." Unquote. All right. Now, I would like to take you back to compare that to what Pope St. Pius X said in his encyclical on modernism, Pascendi. And I'm quoting from paragraph 15. Again, this is all on my website. Quoting from paragraph 15 of Pascendi. Now, this is Pope Pius X. Compare it to what we just heard. "But this doctrine of experience is also, under another aspect, entirely contrary to Catholic truth. It is extended and applied to tradition, as hitherto understood by the Church, and destroys it. By the modernists, tradition is understood as a communication to others through preaching by means of the intellectual formula of an original experience." Unquote. All right. Let's go back to the Ecclesia Dei document again. We're going to see some other problematic statements. This is from paragraph 5. Quote, "I should like to remind theologians and other experts in the ecclesiastical sciences that they should feel themselves called upon to answer in the present circumstances. Indeed, the extent and depth of the teaching of the Second Vatican Council call for a renewed commitment to deeper study in order to reveal clearly the Council continuity with tradition, Here's a good part. Especially in points of doctrine which perhaps because they are new have not yet been well understood by some sections of the church. Unquote. Now, that should sound very strange to you. Points of doctrine which are new? Now, I'm going to go back to the First Vatican Council. Listen carefully to this, and then I promise I'll be done quoting from documents. From the First Vatican Council, quote, "For the Holy Spirit was promised to the successors of Peter, not so they might, by his revelation, make known some new doctrine, but that by his assistance they might religiously guard and faithfully expound the revelation or deposit of faith transmitted by the apostles." Moving forward, hence too, that meaning of the sacred dogmas is ever to be maintained, which has once been declared by Holy Mother Church, and there must never be any abandonment of this sense under the pretext or in the name of a more profound understanding. May understanding, knowledge, and wisdom increase as ages and centuries roll along and greatly and vigorously flourish in each and all, in the individual and the whole church. But this is only in its own proper kind. That is to say, in the same doctrine, the same sense, and the same understanding. Unquote. Again, you can find these quotes on my website at catholicesquire.org. My friends, the whole point of going through that exercise was to tell you that what was in the Ecclesia Dei document in 1988, which was essentially the founding document that the FSSP and the other Ecclesia Dei communities had to sign on to, was based on modernism and principles contrary to the Catholic faith. And so when you're deciding on, oh, well, SSPX or versus FSSP, it really doesn't have anything to do with individual priests or individual sermons. It has to do with the founding principles of the societies themselves. And for me, when it came down to it, quite frankly, I wanted to be associated and be a part of and attend Mass at a church that was fundamentally and adhered to the faith. That's it. I felt more comfortable with them because they did not essentially make a deal with the devil. Oh, are you calling JP2 the devil? No, I'm not calling JP2 the devil. But what I am saying is that the FSSP made a bargain, and it was a very bad bargain, because while they managed to get the right to continue to say the traditional Latin Mass, and yeah, JP2 and Benedict upheld their end of the bargain, they didn't give him too much pushback. That could all very much change any day now. And there's really, as a matter of logic, they can't say anything about it because they bought onto and they jumped on the Vatican II train in order to get approval from Rome. And the SSPX chose to stay loyal to the principles of the faith and the traditional teaching of the church. And for me, that was a big deal. So I hope this little exercise helps. These are important issues. There's no question about it. I think it's going to come to light. It's going to come to light even more under the current regime occupying power in Rome right now. And we're not going to get away from this Vatican II discussion. We have to address the elephant in the room. That's what all this comes down to, is can we say we agree with everything Vatican II says, including its spirit? Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe and like the video and share it with your friends. If anything, it will spur some very interesting discussions. Have a great day.